Welcome to Jobs and Pods, the audio job board. This podcast is part of our Career Path series where we explore careers in different industries and hear straight from the experts. Today we'll talk about jobs as a journalist. Joining us today is Sarah Needleman. She's a reporter and associate editor with the Wall Street Journal online network. You can read many of Sarah's articles on careerjournal.com and also in the Wall Street Journal's print edition from time to time. And she's on the phone with us now. How are you doing, Sarah?
Hi, how are you?
Okay. So just how long have you been a reporter, and where did you get your start in the business?
Sure. I've been a reporter pretty much since college. I got my start by doing internships during the summertime while I was a student at Rutgers, and also during the winter breaks I did shorter internships. So that was really where I got some experience in the beginning, and it really helped me land my first job outside of college.
Okay. Did you graduate with a journalism degree, or?
That is correct.
Okay.
I studied journalism at Rutgers. I believe they don't have that major now. I think now it's called communications, and it branches off into other areas like public relations. But as far as I know, they still do have journalism courses.
Cool. And how did you end up at the Journal?
First let me backtrack and just say that I started out at a weekly newspaper, then moved up to a daily newspaper, and then got over to the Journal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a sort of a backdoor entry in the sense that I applied to a job at careerjournal.com, the same job I have now, essentially.
Right.
And Career Journal is basically a subsidiary or a division of the Wall Street Journal that's online that focuses just on the career content you normally see in the paper on Tuesdays in the marketplace section.
Okay.
And to be honest, I wasn't really too familiar with Career Journal, but I did see that it was from the Wall Street Journal. It was a Dow Jones publication, and it was pretty new at the time. This is a little over 5 years ago. Previously, Career Journal was actually a print publication called the Employment. I think it's called the Employment News Weekly. I forget the exact.
Is it National Employment Weekly?
Yes, that's it. My apologies. And it was moved online a couple of years, maybe 2 years before I joined. And in writing for Career Journal, I've had the opportunity to get published in the print edition of the Wall Street Journal. And since I've joined, we've also meshed more with the paper and WSJ.com, so we're a much closer unit now than when I first joined the company. Okay.
Did you have a particular affinity for doing stories on careers and jobs, or just how you ended up there?
Yeah, I sort of just ended up here when I applied for the job at Career Journal. I wanted something in writing. I knew I wanted to do business journalism, because I feel that they're probably the most exciting kind of journalism out there. Everything's a business, so you could be writing about pets one day, rock and roll the next, search engines another day.
Right.
So especially in covering careers, I'm covering all types of careers, so I get a real variety, and it keeps me very excited about what I do.
What are some of the most interesting stories you've covered, say, in the last year or so?
The ones that have gotten the most coverage or the most feedback from readers have been the stories about blogging. I did two large pieces, one recently on how blogs can help you get a job, and another piece on how people are blogging as part of their job, getting paid to blog. And I got an enormous amount of reader feedback. Of course, that may be just simply because the blogosphere loves to talk, and these folks love to read and link to one another, so maybe that's why. But for me, those were both very exciting assignments because of the enormous amount of feedback I got.
Right. Cool. Would you say that most people start out working in a college newspaper and stuff like that who do want to get into journalism?
I believe that is common. I did write for my school newspaper, although I didn't write for the daily news. I wrote for the feature-y type publications, and technically now I do features, so I guess it makes sense. I wrote for a paper called the Rutgers Review, and a very silly paper called The Medium, and I say silly because a lot of its content nowadays is kind of like The Onion in a way.
Right.
But when I was a student, it was taken a little bit more seriously. In fact, I remember one of the writers being quoted in the New York Times when Coke had scored a huge partnership with Rutgers, and I was very impressed by that. So I wrote for those two papers while I was a student, and a couple of letters to the editor to the Daily Target, which is Rutgers' regular newspaper, but I didn't write for straight-up news, and if I were to give any recommendations or tips to listeners, I would say that it is good to get a good foundation in news writing, which unfortunately I didn't have that chance to do, and I sort of had to play catch-up as I matured in my career.
Right.
A good grounding, and something that many employers look for, whether you're writing features or news, is to have a good basic understanding of how to report news on a tight deadline.
Cool. Now, there's been a lot of sort of hubbub in the industry about newspapers cutting back on hiring reporters and stuff like that. What's your opinion on the state of the industry right now as a whole? And to you, is it still an exciting field to work in?
Sure. I definitely think it's an exciting field to work in and always will be. It is nerve-wracking to hear the news about layoffs at some of the big magazines. Mm-hmm. You're hearing about it less at the actual newspapers and more in the magazines.
Right.
And I think that really says a lot about the future in terms of what readers are expecting. And it seems like the Internet is really where it's all headed.
Right.
So even journalists who are looking for careers in newspaper writing should really think about their writing in terms of attracting a web audience, because that is where the majority of the readers are going nowadays.
Right.
And I think there's plenty of job opportunities still to be found. I think they're going to be more found online. You're hearing about a lot of magazines folding, yet they're still keeping their online presence.
Right.
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I've read recently a couple examples of that. So I think journalists who are looking for work or looking for careers in this field should really pay attention to the online opportunities.
Okay. Is there a big difference in writing online as opposed to a print article?
There are some subtle differences. We're told that the reader's attention span for the web is not as long as for print.
Right.
They don't want to scroll down and down and down, so we try to make our pieces a lot shorter and tighter. And then there's also just the format. You don't have the indentation of the paragraphs.
Right.
But other than that, it's basically the same. Just trying to keep it a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter to engage readers. And the other aspect is the interactive element. It's very popular here, at least at Dow Jones, to develop a community of readers and get people to be actively involved by participating in discussion boards and polls, things of that nature.
Okay. Last question for you. What's the best piece of advice anyone ever gave you while getting your start as a reporter?
I think the best piece of advice would be accuracy and compelling news. And by that I mean always be sure to dot your I's and T's. Make sure you get everything accurate. There's really nothing that takes away from your credibility as a reporter as having spelling errors or incorrect numbers or information. And over time, that really kind of hacks away at your the kind of level of respect that you'll command from readers. So always really take the time to go back and proofread and double check and call back that source and make sure you got it right, and double check with more than one source. And as far as the compelling content goes, readers' attention spans they're short. And there's a lot of good writers out there who really distinguish themselves from the not-so-great writers. And if you can't get into that top tier, you're not going to keep people from coming back over and over again. So it's really important to be as compelling as possible, on the cutting edge, and to have it correct.
Very good. Well, definitely great advice. And we are out of time, but I want to thank Sarah for her time today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And for other podcasts like this, visit jobsandpods.com and click the career path link under the job categories. Thanks for listening, everyone.